Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic peeps, to my channel, Slime and Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers and plenty of stuff in between, including books. Today's video is a special tag video. Yeah, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, bitch. I'm gonna be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So stay right where you are, because right after this short intro, we will come back and I will freaking do the tag. Welcome back, guys. Okay, let's get into the flippin' tag. This tag, you know, it's making its way around BookTube. I meant to do it last year, but I never freaking did it. So I'm here this year and I'm gonna do it. And just an apology in advance. I am not feeling good at all. You might be fooled in thinking that I feel great because I've got energy. But trust me, my throat is killing me. But I wanted to get this tag video up before the end of the month, so I'm here recording it. And I'm actually really excited. Even though I don't feel well, I'm still excited to talk about some of my favorite books and, you know, some disappointments too with you guys. All right, and if you want to leave any of your answers to any of these questions down below and you don't have a BookTube, please comment your answers because I want to know some of you guys' answers to these questions. And I've got my little notes here, so if I look down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. Everyone needs notes now and then, and I didn't want to forget anything, so I've got a little list of notes. All right, first question, best book you've read so far in 2023. This is hilarious. You guys know, if you know me, that I can't make decisions, and so what I do is make lists instead of just picking one answer. So I've already recorded and released a top 10 of 2023 so far, and I also included 13 honorable mentions, so essentially it is like a top 23 list. So if you're interested in my favorite reads so far of 2023, I will link that video down below in case you haven't already seen it. And that is my answer for best book of 2023. Is it one book? No, of course it's not one book. It's 10 plus 13. It's 23 books. I couldn't choose. At this point, I have read literally like 100.5 books. I say a half because I'm in the middle of a book right now and I'm hoping to finish it before the end of June. So I have already read 100 books and I'm so pumped and jazzed. It's the most I've ever read 6 months into the year. This is the most of all time. So I'm pretty impressed with myself, I gotta say. All right, second question. Best sequel you've read so far in 2023? Well, I haven't read many sequels, even though one of my goals this year was to continue on with any series that I had started. And I have started series by Richard Lehman. I've started a series by Jack Ketchum. And I have not continued on with those yet. I do plan to eventually. I also started a new series this year called The S Squad, and I did continue on with that. So it's really the only series that I've read more than one book of. So by saying it's my favorite, it's really not my favorite. It's just the only series that I've continued. So the only sequel that I've read is freaking S Squad Book 2, which I actually like the first book better. So anyway, I am actually going to give a kind of half answer, a little bit of a cheating answer to this question. And I'm going to say my favorite sequel that I've read is Star Trek Resistance. It is not a book sequel. It's kind of like a sequel to Star Trek TNG in general, and it's an unofficial sequel. So this picks up after the events of the Star Trek TNG film Nemesis takes place, and also after First Contact, and after all of the TNG movies take place. So this kind of happens, and it's not official, it's not like officially recognized as part of Star Trek TNG lore, but I recognized all the little references of everything that had taken place before this book. So to me, it feels like this is an unofficial sequel to the TNG world. And I really enjoyed this way, way more than I thought I would. So this has to be my answer for best sequel, even though it isn't really technically an official sequel. It is an unofficial, like, tie-in book, essentially. But I had a good time with it, and I can't wait to read more Star Trek TNG books, because I'm all about TNG, bitch. Engage. Question number 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I actually have multiple answers for this, and 2 of my answers just came in the mail literally yesterday at the time of me filming this. So these are brand spanking new releases. They're super, super hot off the presses. They're literally June releases, late June releases. And the first one is going to blow you guys' mind because it's a romance book. Kelsi looking forward to a romance book? What the heck? Well, it's because of who wrote it and because of the topic of it, essentially. So, my first new release that I'm extra pumped to get to that I haven't read yet is The First Date Prophecy by Kate and Danny Tamborelli. If the last name Tamborelli sounds familiar to you, it's because Danny Tamborelli is the actor who played Little Pete from Pete and Pete. He was also in a lot of other things back in the 90s, so I love The Adventures of Pete and Pete. I love 90s Nickelodeon. I'm wearing 90s Nickelodeon earrings right now. And I think Little Pete is one of the best characters from 90s TV. He is like one of the coolest kid characters of all time. And anyway, I follow him and his wife on Instagram, and they've got the cutest little family. They've got kids now. And so I found out about this back in April when I was about to host Old School April, and I wish this had come out back then because I would have freaking pushed this on people so hardcore, because this definitely will have some retro vibes, but it's still set in newer times. So I'll read you the premise. A fiercely funny debut novel about 2 talented romantic misfits who've been looking for love for so long. A prophecy from a psychic could be just another disastrous first date anecdote, or it could be the beginning of a love story for the ages. So this is based loosely on their actual real life love story. And essentially there's an aspiring writer, Lucy. She has no trouble putting the comedy in her rom-coms. It's the romance part of the equation that's the problem. But even as the rejection slips pile up and her second dates dwindle, Lucy refuses to give up hope or her heartthrob's dating profile. Former child star Rudy made his mark on some of the most popular kid show of the 90s. That's where it takes reference from real life. But that early success has pigeonholed him into a stand-up routine, riffing on his past work. While the slick single life he envisioned was clearly a fantasy, he actually is ready for a relationship if he could just find someone uninterested in who he used to be. When Lucy and Rudy match online, they're eager to meet, but after their first date ends in a psychic's prophecy that is equal parts great fortune and certain doom, their flirty quips and their search for answers to some of life's big questions begins. Is there really one person for everyone? Do destinies really intertwine? Where can you find the best tacos in Brooklyn? And when it matters most, will they throw caution and fate to the wind, trust their instincts, and write their own futures? This sounds so cute. I'm not a big romance person, but I'm here for supporting Kate and Danny's family because they're so cute on Instagram. And this sounds really cute, and it sounds like it's got some nostalgic winks and nods as well. Another book I just got in that was just released, Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano, and this seems so interesting, and it is blurbed by some big name people like Christopher Golden, Nick Cutter, Jennifer McMahon. So this is probably a thriller book, but as you may have guessed from the VHS on the cover, it has a vintage vibe.
Clifford Island. When Willowstone finds these words written on the floor of her deceased son's bedroom, she's perplexed. She's never heard of it before, but soon learns it's a tiny island off of Wisconsin's Door County Peninsula, 200 miles from Willow's home. Why would her son write this on his floor? After a few days in Clifford, Willow realizes this place is not normal. Everyone seems to be stuck in 1994. They wear outdated clothing, avoid modern technology, and perhaps most mystifyingly, watch the O.J. Simpson car chase every evening. When she asks questions, people are evasive, but she learns one thing: close your curtains at night.
The premise goes on, but I don't want to read too much into it. 1994, yes, I'm all in, bitch. I'm here for it. So I'm excited to get to this, and I hope it doesn't disappoint. And the next new release that's been out for a few months, but I haven't gotten to it yet, is the book that is by Sam Neill, and it's about his life, and it's called Did I Ever Tell You This? And I've been on a really big Sam Neill kick this year, especially after discovering at the end of last year how much I freaking love the movie Possession. So now I am up to devour anything Sam Neill related. So I am so excited to check out his memoir. Next question is most anticipated anticipated release for the second half of the year. I've got a couple of different answers for this. The first book that I'm most looking forward to is a book that's coming out later this year, Schroeder's Chord by Scott Leeds, and this was kindly provided to me by the publishing company. Thank you, Tor Nightfire. I'm so excited that I got approved for a ARC copy. So this comes out in September of this year, and I think it's going to be amazing. I know a lot of people are really looking for horror books that have a musical vibe to them, so this would totally fit the bill. And for me, the reason I'm so excited and pumped to read this is that it seems to have a vintage flair. It just feels very vintagey in general and very paperbacks from hell from the description on the back of the book. And the only reason I have not already read this is because I'm trying to wait closer to the release date to review this on my channel and talk about it more extensively. But I'm happy to talk about it now because this is one of the books I'm so looking forward to.
I told you they were real. After his estranged father's mysterious death, Charlie returns to Seattle to help with the funeral. There, he discovers his father left him 2 parting gifts, the keys to the family record store and a strange black case containing 4 antique records that, according to legend, can open a gate to the land of the dead.
And then more unfolds from there. I am super intrigued. Can't wait to get to it. And thank you again to Tor Nightfire for this advanced reading copy. Another book I'm looking forward to is the new Catriona Ward book. Of course, I've loved the other 2 books that I've read by her, The Last House on Needless Street and Sundial. Both were 5 stars, so I'm highly looking forward to her brand new release coming out soon. And then another advanced reading copy that I recently got approved for is Jiggly Spot and the Zero Intellect by P.D. Aliva, and this one sounds like so much fun. The tagline says, "Carnivals, cannibals, and clowns." Oh my! It releases on October 31st, and I'm going to read it again closer to the release date, so probably early October is when I'm going to dig into this, or late September. And also another one that I actually found out about from my friend Alex over at the channel The Bookubus. Check out her channel, she is fantastic. She recently got an ARC of this book called Frostbite by Angela Slavine. So this new book by her, Frostbite, is coming out on October 10th, and of course it's got a retro vibe to it, just like some of the other books I've mentioned in this tag video so far. The synopsis says, remember the 90s? Well, the town of Demise, North Dakota doesn't, and they're living in the year 1997. That's because an alien worm hitched a ride on a comet, crash landed in the town's trailer park, and is now infecting animals with a memory loss inducing bite. And right before Christmas. So this seems like it'll be a perfect winter read. So when it comes out, I'm gonna buy it right away. Cannot wait. And last but not least, another new release I'm looking forward to, Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. It comes out in September, and supposedly, according to the Goodreads synopsis, it says it weaves horror and Celtic myth into a terrifying, heartbreaking, supernatural tale of fractured family bonds, the secrets we carry, and the veiled forces that guide Irish life. And I'm big into Irish culture. I love St. Paddy's Day. I love Celtic punk, and I just like anything Irish themed. I just love that so much, so I cannot wait for that to come out. Next question, biggest disappointment, and I've got a list of 5 biggest disappointments from the year so far. All right, first up, my biggest disappointment, Cock Blocker by David Irons. Look at this cover. You would think this would be a perfect slasher read. With a cover like this, it is so beautiful. Even if the story disappointed, oh, aren't I glad to own it? Not really. I actually hate to own this right now because the R word is used 5 times. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 5 freaking times in this book that was released in 2023. And does it have a reason for using the R word? No, no justifiable reason at all. Even if you were trying to make the characters sound like they are talking in the 90s, because that's when the book is taking place. Yes, people did use the R word in the 90s. There's still no excuse to use that word in this book in 2023. It is atrocious. It has no reason to be there. Even some of the characters you're supposed to like are using the word. So it's not just our main antagonist. That, to me, wouldn't even be a good enough reason. But yeah, I just don't understand why in 2023, David Irons is using that word 5 times in this book. So, huge disappointment. Also, the characters fell flat. I could not get invested. There were cool kills, but that is not enough to be a good slasher book, in my opinion. You gotta have more, and the R word really turned me off. I just kept counting. I didn't mean to, but I kept seeing the word, and I was like, are you kidding me? Another usage of this word? So huge disappointment, despite the cover being so beautiful. Such a shame. so horrible that I was so let down by this. Another book, I'm sorry, Katrina. Katrina, usually I jive with a lot of her recommendations, but we don't always see eye to eye. I still think her channel is fantastic, and I still think her recommendations are badass. So check out her channel over at Katrina Brown. But one of the books she recommended me to read for my little project of 12 friends recommend me books was This Is Where We Talk Things Out. And I know a lot of other people who love this book, like my friend Lexi from Books with Lexi. Her channel is wonderful too. Check her out. Me and Lexi have agreed on a lot of books, but we did not agree on this book. This was one of my most disappointing reads for 2023. I thought it was predictable. I just did not enjoy it. I was like, why does everyone love this and I don't? So I guess I had too high of expectations. It didn't knock me away, or blow me away as they say, whatever. Knock my socks off, blow me away, whatever the sayings are. It didn't do any of that. All right, next up, the cats. I usually love a animal attack book. Killer animals are usually a lot of fun, but The Cats by Nick Sharman was pretty freaking boring. So that was a little disappointing. My friend Ollie actually likes it a lot. I do not. Check out Ollie's channel, Criminale. Another animal attack book that fell short was Barracuda Swarm. Read it because I was on Team Blue Barracudas for Old School April, which was the readathon I hosted back in April with a bunch of wonderful other co-hosts. And yeah, I read it to rep my team, and it just did not have enough Barracudas. Give me the Barracudas, bitch! We're on Team Blue Barracuda. Chomp, chomp! We want more Barracudas, and Barracuda Swarm really fell short on Barracuda usage and references. It did not have enough attacks. It was like 2 Barracuda attacks in the entire book, and it was so slow and boring besides that. And last but not least, in terms of disappointment, because this was a huge disappointment, the book Witch by Christopher Pike. My friend Katrina likes this book. My friend Elizabeth Sagewood likes this book. Check out Elizabeth's channel. She is fantastic. I like Christopher Pike. I've liked a lot of his books, but I did not like Witch. I wanted more witchiness, and I did not like the male characters. So that one was a big, big disappointment for me. But I still have faith that I will like other Christopher Pike books when I continue on with my Christopher Pike journey. My favorite book of his as of right now is still the book Monster, and if we're talking about a non-horror book, of course I still love The Midnight Club, which is a very emotional book. It is not really a horror book. And now we come to a much more fun question, a more positive leaning question, the biggest surprise of 2023 so far. And I think my very biggest surprise is Head Like a Hole by Andrew Van Wey, and this one just blew me away. I was not expecting it to be anything super special. I just love the cover. I mean, the cover is beautiful. This I wouldn't have even had on my radar had it not been for my friend Amy's book club. My friend Amy has a terrific book club. It's called the Dark Hearts Book Club, but check out her channel in general. It is called Amy Noel Reads. She's a fantastic person all around, and her book club has been freaking amazing this year for finding great reads for me, and this was one of them. She read this with the club back in April, and I tagged along, and I was like, okay, let me see what this is all about. Freaking loved it. It was fantastic. It's set in the mid-90s. Grudge and flannel are fading as the Spice Girls and Hot Topic conquer the malls, and then it says,
in a fog-drenched cove at the edge of New England, something terrible awakens when a fisherman reels in a gruesome catch, the remains of a young woman, remains still pulsing with furious life. And for Megan and her friends, this is how their nightmare begins. A wet whisper over their shoulder, a dark hand reaching out from the edge of their sight, and a name clawing at the back of their minds.
Lots of great, over-the-top, wonderfully creative horror imagery in this book and more. Had such a great, fabulous time with this, and it was a 5-star read, one of my favorite reads of the year, and just a total surprise. It came out of nowhere. I did not think that this was going to be a 5-star read when I picked it up. Another 5-star read, and this one I read for my friend Kat's Zombie-thon readathon. Check out Kat's channel, it's fantastic. She's over at Kat's Novel Adventures. This was her group read for that readathon, Night of the Living Trekkies, and you do not have to like Star Trek to like this book. It had heart, it had comedy, it had a great setting, and it had a different, unique take on zombies. So this was a big surprise because I thought it would be a fun time, but I didn't think it would have as much depth and great character development as it really, truly did. So yeah, it also wound up on my favorite reads of the year so far list. So if you look at my top 10 list and haven't seen it yet, spoiler to that list, this book is on that list. Another book that I didn't think would be anything super special, but it's a vintage book, Spectre by Stephen Laws. That was a wild, wild book recommended to me by Alex over at the channel The Bookubus. Check her out. It was so zany, so wild. I really had a great time with it. One of my more favorite paperback from hell reads, I do suggest it if you're looking for more ridiculous types of paperbacks from hell. And speaking of ridiculous paperbacks from hell, one of my favorite reads of the entire year, Nelfs by Sydney Williams. I thought this was going to be a throwaway kind of read, but it was so much more. It was so much freaking fun and a huge surprise for me. So Nelfs has to be on this list for a big surprise. And last but not least, The Wolf's Hour by Robert McCammon. It is no surprise that I like a Robert McCammon book. However, his first few books aren't as popular. As time went on, he honed his craft more and more, and his first few books are more kind of paperback from hell-esque in that they can be kind of cheesy. I was expecting a fun book and a well-written book, but I wasn't expecting such a deep book, and a book that took such a deep dive into looking at the Holocaust. And The Wolf's Hour has a section that really dives into concentration camps because it takes place at one in part of the book. One, like a few scenes take place at one, and it's really sad and deep, and it just surprised me by how much I love the book, and I'm still thinking about The Wolf's Hour even to today, even though I read it all the way back in January. And it was a really extra fun buddy read with my friend Andrew. Check out his channel, It Came From the Page. So I still look back fondly on our buddy read together, and the book in general is a really fantastic, underrated Robert McCammon book, in my opinion. It's definitely a different take on a werewolf type of story. New favorite author, either a debut author or a new to you author. So let's start with a favorite new to me author, but they're not new to me this year. They're new to me last year, but a lot of these authors I finally read a second book by, so now I can officially call them new favorites. So Mark Morris would have to be my number one new favorite author, because last year I read Tolle by him, and it was amazing. It blew me away. It made my top 10 of the entire year. I thought to myself, okay, this could just be a one-hit wonder. Maybe this is the only book that's this good by him. But then this year I buddy read Stitch with my friend Alex. Again, check out her channel, The Bookubus. I read this with her, and I freaking loved it, and it lived up to the caliber of Toady. So 2 books under my belt by Mark Morris, loved them both, and so he is officially a new favorite author. And after reading Stitch, I went and bought a ton more books by him, and I cannot wait to keep reading more from his back catalog. And I truly highly recommend his books to people, because he is somebody that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I think way more people should be talking about him, because his horror imagery and his prose is some of the best I've ever read. Another author that I read a book from a couple of years ago, but I read a second book from them this year, and that is Lisa Tuttle. So she's officially a auto-buy author. She's coming out with a new release of stories soon, which looks so good. I'm definitely going to buy it. But I buddy read with Andrew and Katrina, again, Katrina Brown, and It Came From the Page. Check them out. I buddy read Familiar Spirit with them earlier this year. Loved it, and it cemented Lisa Tuttle as a favorite author of mine. And another author that I've dug into more of their work this year, Ivy Tholen. I read Mallrats by her this year, as well as Permanent Damage by her. Love them both. Last year, Tastes Like Candy was one of my favorite reads of the entire year. It's a wonderful slasher book. And then reading Mallrats this year and Permanent Damage, she is just definitely an auto-buy author for me. Anything new she comes out with, I will be purchasing right away. I just love how she writes her characters, and even if I didn't like this book as much as Tastes Like Candy, which I didn't, and the same thing with Permanent Damage, I still really loved both books very much. And then I want to quickly highlight 2 debut books that I read this year that I freaking loved, and I can't wait for these authors to release more books. First up, Curse of the Reaper. This again was a book club pick for my friend Amy's book club, the Dark Hearts book club, so you would be missing out if you don't check out her book club. So many great reads from her book club this year. So this is by Brian McCauley, and this is a debut book. So freaking for a debut book, this was fantastic. It was a different take on a slasher book. It's more of a character study, but there definitely are nods and winks to slasher movies in this, and that is what I freaking loved. And I don't want to say too much about it because I think it's best not to know too much. The audiobook was great. I had such a good time. Definitely worth picking up this. It's a great debut book. And I've been raving about this book since I read it. This is apparently CJ Leeds' debut, and it freaking knocked my socks off. I love a good literary leaning book, and this definitely is like more of a literary horror book, and it's definitely really character driven because we're spending our entire time in this book in Maeve's head. That's our main character, Maeve. And it is so good. It's like American Psycho, but kind of more compelling because she's a feminist badass in a way. Yes, is she creepy and off-putting because she's a killer? Yeah, but she's still pretty badass. She loves Halloween. Anyway, for being a debut book, just the prose was so incredible. I only had an advanced reading copy and listening copy from Tor Nightfire, which thank you so much to Tor Nightfire for approving me and to NetGalley for approving me, but I had to go and buy a physical copy after reading it because I liked it so much. So I wish I would have had a physical copy while reading so I could have highlighted passages, but I will definitely reread this in the future and be marking off passages in this wonderful book. Next up, newest fictional crush, and I don't really have fictional crushes, but I have a hilarious answer. Danube, the character from Nelfs. And if you've read Nelfs, that is a hilarious answer to say that my crush is Danube, because it's not my crush, but I love that character so much. The audiobook, the narration of Danube made me laugh so many times, so that is my crush, is Danube from Nelfs, and it's a ridiculous answer, and you cannot take me seriously. Next question, newest favorite character. I've got two. First up, my number one favorite new character, Maeve, of course, to shout out this book again. She is so twisted, but so fascinating, and I just loved being in her head because it was a weird place to be, but it was my kind of weird. And next up, another awesome, badass female character, the main character from Escape from Happydale, Parker. Parker is essentially the last final girl, and she kicks butt. She searches out slashers to freaking take them out and help other girls and other people survive, and I love that about her. Next up, a book that made me cry. I have two answers, and they didn't full out make me cry. A book hasn't really full out made me cry since Boy's Life, when I read that last year. At the very end of the book, there's like a sad passage, but it's also very inspiring, and it made me tear up and cry, like a lot. And I also cried a lot at The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike because it is so freaking sad. That's why I say it's not a horror book. It's more of an emotional read. And those two made me cry last year. This year, the books I cried at were more of like, I got teary-eyed. I didn't really have actual tears spilling down. But the two that I can say made me tear up were Monstrillo, which was a powerful, powerful book that examined the grief that two parents, and actually the extended family, not just the parents, are going through after the loss of their son. One of the parents cuts out a piece of his lung, and something grows from that piece, and how they interact with the creature that grows from the lung is part of the story, but also the grief they feel from losing their actual son is part of it too, and that part's really hard to read, but powerful at the same time. And the second book, We Spread by Ian Reid. I think that's a powerful book about aging and how you can't really trust your mind anymore. And I just felt sad for the main character. I was like, no, she's such a cute oldie. I love her. And I didn't really know what was going on. It's a read you can interpret in different ways, but it was a great, fascinating read. I had a good time with it, and it made me tear up. Next up, and this is my favorite question on the tag list. So, a book that made you happy. I have quite a few that made me happy, and the first one you might guess, it's Nelfs by Sydney Williams, because I laughed so much, and I told so many people about that book after having such a fun time reading it, and I told them about how the little Nelf characters, essentially the premise is this little girl, Heaven, is dreaming about these cartoon characters. They're called Nelfs. Think of like a green version of Smurfs. So they're supposed to be cute, fun characters, but in Heaven's dreams, they actually are very sinister and they are mean for some reason, and they're actually able to physically harm her. Why is that possible? Well, we come to find out why as the story develops. There's a character as a reference named Danube, who is a very interesting origin story, which you also learn through the process of reading the book. And Nelfs, not only do they hurt Heaven, they also kind of bash Heaven's mom a lot. They're like,
your mom's a bitch. Your mom's a whore.
And like over and over again, your mom's a whore. And then your mom's a bitch. Over and over. And it's so funny. I highly recommend using the audiobook for Nelfs because it's funny as hell. But it was such a great time. I had the funnest time, and people who I recommended the book to have given it 5 stars. Not one person, but 2 people, my friend Katrina and my friend Amy, and lots of other people who I've suggested it to were like, Kelsi, it was so fun. So I gotta say, I'm very proud of that recommendation, and I'm very proud of having read that and discovered how much of a hidden gem it is. So I am so happy I read that. It was so much fun. Is it for everybody? No, because it's not super serious, but it is unique, and it is a very good time, I think. But the best thing about it is the uniqueness, because, you know, you get into some horror books where you've, like, been there, done that. You cannot say that with Nelfs. You cannot say that at all, because it totally goes in a wild direction. The ending is bonkers. Another zany book and another vintage book that made me very happy was Death Song, because there are literal song duels in here, like sword duels, but they're song duels. So you didn't hear me wrong. It's song duels, like la 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 la.
La.
But there's actual words, I guess, but all I know is they describe, like, the people, like, singing and, like, rocks falling and shit. Anyway, this was so wild, and it is gory, and, like, literally a baby is sacrificed on page 5. So is this for everyone? Definitely not. Vintage horror in general is not for everyone, but if you are someone who's already dipped your toe into the paperback from hell world, then you might want to pick this up if you like zany reads that are gory, that are different, that are strange but fun, and strange but interesting. So this has you covered, and it was one of the books that made me the most happy. Next up, another book that made me happy, and I just read it in June, The Jason Strain. It is a vintage book, so the only way I could listen to it was by going on the YouTube channel, the Slash Tracks Network, and listening to the YouTube video they have. The guy who runs that channel read the book out loud, so thank you for doing that so that I could experience the book. Let me just say, one of the scenes that made me the happiest is Jason comes out of the ocean. He saves a woman from getting attacked by a shark. She's a surfer. And how Jason defends her from the shark is by ripping the shark's jaw off. He's holding the shark's jaw in one hand, she hugs him in the other hand, and he freaking uses the jaws to kill her, and it's freaking fantastic. It is so wild and ridiculous. There's actually great character development in this trashy book, and I will say that it has an emotional ending too. It actually has a powerful ending. So it has really some good qualities to it for being a seemingly trashy read on the surface. So does it have trashy elements? Well, yeah, because there's lots of descriptions of boobs and women's bodies. And there's this trashy producer that's all like, Jason, baby, think of the royalties, baby. Yes, Jason, baby. But all those elements are why I was so happy while I was reading that book. Another book that made me happy, I know these are many books that have made me happy, but these all really made me so happy. Were Cage by Ian Fortey. I want to read more by him because this was so much fun. Is it perfect? No, I'm sure there was a typo or two, because as you could maybe tell from this cover, I think that this is probably an author-published book. Like, he probably published this himself, and, you know, the formatting's not the greatest, the cover's bad, but I bought it because I thought the story was so fun and so great. So, essentially, Nicolas Cage bites somebody who's just coming out of an all-night Nicolas Cage movie marathon, like in a theater, playing old Nicolas Cage movies, essentially. And Nicolas Cage is in town shooting a movie, and apparently he's also going around biting people. So he ends up biting this dude who just came from the movie marathon, and the next day the dude morphs into Nicolas Cage, and he starts talking like Nicolas Cage, like in Nicolas Cage movie quotes and stuff. Anyway, apparently this Nicolas Cage, is going around biting other people, and there are other people turning into Nicolas Cage. So there are tons of were-cages, like werewolves, but no, were-cages running around. And the reasoning behind it was actually logical and fun and amazing, and the story behind it was just really unique, and I thought it was beyond fun, just beyond. And I really liked it a lot. I thought it also had some heart, which was surprising. I was not expecting that. It wasn't just trashy or weird. It was great. It was well-rounded, I will say. Next up, most beautiful book you've bought or received, and of course I've got to shout out Mayfly again. I love the cover so much. I hate eyeballs, they creep me out, but this cover is effective as hell. It's one of the best, newer horror book cover designs that I've seen in a long time. But there are more than just that one that's a great new horror book cover. This one is an amazing cover as well. Fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. But a book that I received that I think has one of the best covers is behind me a little bit. There is a glare, but Death Stone by Ruby Jean Jensen. My friend Alex gave me that book and I nearly cried. But there's been a lot of people who have sent me books this year, and honestly, any single book that I receive is a treasured book and is something that really warms my heart and makes me want to cry, because people don't have to send me books, but they end up doing so. So thank you to anyone who has sent a book or a card or a sticker or any of the above, or a freaking cool ass toy, or a freaking crocheted awesome freaking hat. I honestly love anything that anyone sends me because it's so unexpected. It's not necessary, but it is appreciated. So yay, I love you guys. Thank you so much for anything anyone ever sends. Last question, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, essentially all the books, all the freaking books. But I've got themes for every single month of the year going forward until the end of the year. So I'm really super excited to do my coming of age month of reading in July coming up. I'm excited in September to do a Patreon only readathon. If you want more deets, check out my Patreon linked below. But it's going to be carnival, fair, funhouse, clown themed, amusement park themed as well. That will be in September. I am excited for all the Halloween themed reading I'll be doing in October. So yeah, I am excited for all the trash reads because I'm one of the co-hosts for Garb August. So there's so much to look forward to. And one of the big things I'm definitely looking forward to and need to read this year, and I think I'm going to use it to plan out my Halloween watch list, is a brand new book I was just sent by my friend Nathaniel Tolle, aka Nathan. He's one of my very best friends that I've met through this wonderful online community. So he just released a book, Horror Galore, 300 fantastic fright flicks you might have missed. So this is like unusual films, and I've flipped through this already and so excited to dig into it more fully, because just flipping through some of the movies that I have seen that have been listed in here, I have really loved. So I know already from flipping through it, there are some movies that I've never heard of before, so I cannot wait to use this to craft my October movie marathon list, because every year not only do I do Halloween thematic reading, I also do Halloween thematic viewing. So I watch a lot of horror movies with a big old movie marathon list in October every year. I actually start at the end of September, so this will help me craft my list, and I do strongly encourage everyone to go and pick up a copy of this, because if you're looking for like a guide to unique movies, this will be right up your alley. And just from flipping through it, I know it is a good buy. And Nathan's so sweet. Why not support someone who is badass and awesome and is a great friend? And he sent me this and like wrote a whole little page note for me. Thank you so much, Nathan. You are the best. I really appreciate you. You didn't have to do that. He freaking drew our favorite, our hockey team logos. That's his team. This is my team. Anyway, so cool. I definitely recommend picking this up because it's well worth it. 300 films. That's a lot of freaking movies. And I just can't wait to freaking plan my list. That's going to be something to look forward to, because I'm a big list maker, if you guys didn't know. Hence why this whole tag is like a big list for me, so that's why I had fun answering this tag. I hope you guys had fun watching me answer it. So thank you so much for taking your time. You guys mean the world to me. I know some people, I think there's a last question that's your favorite book community member, but that is everybody, and also especially anybody who gives their time talking and commenting and watching any of the above. I really appreciate you taking the time to check out my videos. You guys rock, and especially the Kelsi Corns. The Kelsi Corns rock too. So I think everybody here on BookTube is pretty badass, and I want to thank you all for taking the time again to watch this tag video and any of the other videos you check out. But for this time, guys, that is it for me. Till next time, guys, you know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye, guys!